Good afternoon, Honorable the Head of Department of Architecture, Professor Engineer Liliani Sigit Arifin, Master of Science, Dr. Afila Safi. Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to meet you
Good
virtually,
afternoon,
ma'am.
Cheryl.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
And of course, Honorable, all the participants, and of course, all invited speakers. Hello, it's a pleasure to meet you all.
Firstly, let's thank to the Almighty Jesus Christ, who has given us mercies and blessing so that we can attend this seminar without troubles and obstacles.
Okay, first, allow me to introduce myself and my partner first. My name is Karin.
And my name is Cheryl. It is an awesome and precious chance for us to be your Master of Ceremony in this afternoon on Friday, 26th of February 2021 in our event, the 4th ICAA Architecture Department, Petra Christian University.
Before we go any further, I would like to invite everyone to join me in a prayer to start this event. Please pray according to your own faith and religion. I will lead prayer in Christian. Dear God, thank you for all the blessings you have bestowed upon us. We are truly grateful for them. Thank you for allowing us today to meet and share our knowledge and time with one another in this seminar. May you extend your divine wisdom to our speakers so that they will be able to impart effectively their God-given knowledge to all of us. May they be blessed as they continue to bring their expertise to people who need them. Bless the participants as well so that they would be able to glean the vital information from this activity. May you bestow your blessings after this seminar so that we may go out and spread what we learn in the spirit of your love and generosity. May we realize that this activity should glorify your name. Amen.
Amen. So first, before we continue, I will read the seminar's rules. First, the meeting room will be open 15 minutes before the actual time. We will activate the waiting room.
Please mind that this meeting link is specially generated for paid participants only.
Please follow this username format before entering the meeting room. Your username is IC, your registration number, space, your name. For example, IC space 009 space January.
Please keep your microphone mute during the presentations of keynote and invited speaker.
Plus, you can type your questions regarding the presentation in the chat section. Our moderator will gladly call for your presence in the Q&A session.
So we would like to welcome our keynote speaker and speakers for today's seminar. First, we have Dr. Architect Joseph Kwan, Master of Humanities, Founding Director of Universal Design and Accessibility Consultants Hong Kong, as our speaker. Good afternoon, sir. It's an honor to be able to meet you virtually.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to attend our seminar today.
Second, we have Mr. Gunawangsa Tanuwijaya, Doctor of Philosophy from Queensland University of Technology, Australia. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, good afternoon. Just correcting, my name is Gunawan. But you can call me Gunte. It's easier.
Okay,
okay.
sorry,
Thank
sir.
you.
Okay, I'll repeat. We have Mr. Gunawan Tanuwijaya, Doctor of Philosophy from Queensland University of Technology.
Candidate.
It is a pleasure to see you, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry for the mistake. Thank you for
It's
taking
okay.
your time to attend our seminar today.
Okay, moving on. Third, we also have Ms. Suzanne De Laval, Doctor of Philosophy from Architecture Analyst, STLM, Sweden. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good morning. It is for me. But thank you very much.
Ma'am.
And
so sorry. Every morning in that.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, well then, good morning, ma'am. It is a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for joining us today.
Okay, the fourth one, we have Ms. Nyatejo Saputro, Doctor of Philosophy from University of Nottingham, Ningbo, and SNPM. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi, pleasure to be here.
It is a pleasure to see you, ma'am. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes.
And last but not least, Chair, our moderator for today's seminar, Ms. Ruli Dharmayanti, Doctor of Philosophy from Petra Christian University. Good afternoon, ma'am. It is a pleasure to see you.
Good afternoon. Hi, all.
Thank you for joining us and take your time to become our moderator today, ma'am. Apart from our amazing speakers, today we also had lots of participants from different places.
That's true, Chair. Besides the participants who came from Indonesia, there were also participants who come up from abroad.
Based on the data we have, please can you share screen? Okay, based on the data we have on your screen, were taken at 9:30 in the morning and still counting. 54% of the participants today are from Petra Christian University, means there are 67%. Hello, everyone from Petra Christian University.
There are also 35% from other universities in Indonesia. Some of them are from Sumatra, Kalimantan, and Bali and Kupang.
Hello, everyone. And also 12 practitioner and student body are also joining us today. Hello.
Okay, moving on. Beside Petra Christian University, there are also 7 persons from other universities from Surabaya here. Hello, everyone.
And there's also some participants from universities abroad. There are a lot of people who have joined us today. Hello, everyone.
Thank you for joining us today. It is nice to see 124 participants on this Zoom, and also the registered YouTube participant, it's still counting from now on, Chair.
Hello, everyone. It was nice to see all of you guys here. Step onto the following agenda is our main event, the seminar. Before that, do you know what our event's big theme is, Karin?
Well, of course I do, Chair. Our seminar theme is architecture for all. That is why we will talk about architecture from different users and with their own behaviors.
Wow, I can't wait to hear and learn a lot from our amazing speakers today. Without further ado, we would like to invite our moderator, Ms. Ruli Darmayanti, Doctor of Philosophy, to moderate the seminar. Ms. Ruli Darmayanti is an assistant professor in the Department of Architecture at our beloved campus, Petra Christian University. She is also a head of Magister Architecture Department at Petra Christian University.
She completed her PhD at University of Sheffield, United Kingdom in 2015. Her research interests are including temporality in architecture and urban planning strategies.
To Mrs. Ruli Darmayanti, time is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. Karin and Cheryl, we have two amazing MC for this event. Karin and Cheryl. Good afternoon all. I am Ruli. I will be the moderator of today's webinar. As mentioned before, we have 4 great speakers. The first is Dr. Joseph Kwan. He is from Hong Kong. He will share his presentation entitled Universal Accessibility for All, Architecture Beyond Form. And I will read through his short CV. Nowadays, Dr. Joseph Kwan is a member of the Hong Kong Government Rehabilitation Advisory Committee, or RAC, and he is also the chair of the RAC Subcommittee on Access, and also a member of the Working Group on Access of the Equal Opportunities Commission Hong Kong, and a member of the Technical Department. There are some of the work since 2004-2012. He has been a member of the Building Committee of the Hong Kong Housing Authority, and also in 1996 to 2005, he is a member of the Transport Department Expert Group Forum and Working Group on Access to Public Transport by Disabled Person. And in 1993 and until 2005, he is a member of the Advisory Committee on Barrier-Free Access of the Buildings Department. Okay, no further ado. The time is yours, Dr. Joseph Kwan. You have 20 minutes to present your presentation, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. It's my delight and pleasure to be joining you today at this your fourth International Conference on Empathic Architecture. I believe this is an extremely important topic, and I congratulate the university, the Petra Christian University, for having such a special emphasis on empathy and architecture, combining these two. And thank you very much for inviting me to present with you, to share with you about what is accessibility for all. And basically, I want to say architecture beyond form, because as you know, most architects are here to design, to do something, build something. Okay, I'd like to share with you another perspective in looking at architecture and looking at buildings. So I may start my presentation now. Very quickly, I hope I can go through all the slides with you within the time. So I shall start. Okay, my first slide's there. Thank you. What is architecture? There are many, many things we can talk about. Responsive built environment. What is that? You know, it's an environment that's responsive to the weather conditions, you know, the light and shade, the winds, natural resources, etc. What you're talking about is empathic architecture. I think it's an excellent idea. I really congratulate the university for bringing up this topic and bringing it to students and the community, you know, about what is architecture. And I believe under this empathic architecture is something we do also should be looking at is socially responsible architecture. And also part of that is going to be inclusive architecture. So I believe all these words are very much related and interrelated to each other. So architects design for form. Okay, this is not actual building, but it's a photographer's image of something. Okay, so architects like these images, but is it totally unrealistic? Look, what are we building nowadays? Architects are now going for real forms, or the best, the bigger, the better, you know, making it, wow, this is me. Identifying architecture without really relevance to responsibility, responsive to the built environment, and even to people. So they're going into forms to make themselves great, the forms. And this one on the top left, that's actually a building built in Bangkok already. Some of you visited Bangkok, that's actually a building built. They probably think it's deconstructivism. That's what they think it is. But other things have been built as well. These are not cartoons. These are actually real buildings built. For whatever reason, to get a bigger wow factor. Wow, your building's interested in mine. You know, what is all this? Is this where we're going? Is this where architecture is going? Is this really empathy? Look at this building, residential building with all those steps. Can you imagine someone walking up there as an older person or with a wheelchair? Can he or she manipulate, negotiate that sort of distances? So let's go beyond these forms and to look at what really should be designing architecture for. Go back in history, the year 2000, there was this instrument called the MDG, Millennium Development Goal. And there are a lot of shortcomings with this MDG because a lot of people were excluded. So back in 2015, the United Nations got together and came up with a 2015 SDG. In fact, they said basically the world leaders must adopt a 2030 agenda for a more sustainable development. And so we're now working on towards a SDG. What is SDG? Basically, there are 11 number of them, and the one that really is closest to our work is probably Goal 11. It talks about sustainable cities and communities. And what does it say? In fact, it says to make communities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Very simple words, inclusive. We'll talk about what that means in a minute. What is a safe human settlement? I think by being empathy, we're talking about human settlement. We're not talking about, there's nothing to say about forms and building these beautiful buildings, you know, to look great on architecture magazines. Is this the way we're going? I believe not. Okay, this is Goal 11. Okay, that's something I like to introduce to. At the same time, internationally, we within the Asia Pacific region, we have every decade, we declare a decade for disabled persons. We're now into the third decade, which is the year 2013 to 2022. And back in 2012, we held a meeting back in Incheon, which is in Korea. And everybody got together and says, what are we doing now for the next decade? For this decade, which is almost ending, next year, they come up with a motto to say, make the right real for persons with disabilities. I'll explain to you what I mean in a minute. What is the right? So, okay, this is the Incheon strategy. You can see there are 10 goals. We're making the right real, 10 different goals. And from the Incheon strategy on the left, the 10 goals, and the 17 SDGs on the right, you can see the interrelationship. For instance, accessible transportation and disaster inclusiveness with our SDG 11, which is sustainable, safe cities and community. So it's all interrelated. We don't work in isolation. We work together and make things work. So the other important aspect recently, probably 2016, where there was a World Humanitarian Summit, World Humanitarian Summit, okay, not a World Forum Summit, Humanitarian Summit held in Istanbul in Turkey. And from that, there were 5 core responsibilities, 5 agenda. And the one we want to concentrate a bit more on is item number 3, to leave no one behind. So core response to number 3, leave no one behind, basically says we need to empower and protect the most vulnerable, including women and children, young people, displaced, people with disabilities, and others. So we are actually empathizing with all these people, and that's the thing we should be looking at. People first, and not form first. We should leave nobody behind. This is the motto from that particular one. The other third important element that happened back in 2016 again is the Habitat 3. Habitat, this UN conference on housing and sustainable urban development, happens once every 20 years. So we were lucky. In 2016, I was lucky to be invited to be one of the, to make a brief presentation. And we talked about the new urban agenda. Okay, you can have time, you look it up, what it is, Habitat 3, new urban agenda, what it means. It talks about urbanization, the rapid growth, etc. That's, we're talking about people once again. And you can see that there are exhibitions, and you can see the different things that were discussed, the different development topics. And we talked about, once again, there it is, safe cities, sustainable cities. That's all part of the Habitat 3, held in Ecuador in Latin America. Now, the other important element we talk about now is the convention, UN Convention, United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. That's what we said back in Incheon. We said, let's make the right real. We want to make this rights of persons with disability real, not just something in paper that we read or put in libraries, but make this real. How do we implement this right? The UN Convention, CRPD for short, there are 50 articles. And basically, it's a human right aspect and talks about social development dimension. Once again, social development, right? Not form development, architecture development, social development. That relates to people. And it happened back in 2006 and 2008 when it all came into force. Your country, Indonesia, you were the signatory already back in 2007. In other words, your country, it's part of the signatory to say, that is good. We agreed on the convention. You put your signature towards it. And you ratify that convention back in 2011. Basically, you put your signature to it and you would do things according to the convention. So your country's already committed back in 2011. And these are different countries that actually adopted the different aspects of the convention. We're down here, mainly in the blue, basically, we are still we're ratifying the convention. We're still to ratify and both the convention and the protocol. Look into the website, the UN website, and learn a bit more about this particular aspect of the UN Convention. The convention, basically, the ones that relate to us mainly as building providers is Article number 2. There's a definition on universal design. Okay. Article number 9, it talks about accessibility, which is talking about access for all, architecture for all. And thirdly, it talks about participation in cultural life, recreation, leisure, and sports. Okay, we'll develop more of that as we come through. And these are things, basically what it says, states party means the country must do certain things in order to provide people with disabilities or everybody to live independently and to participate in all aspects of life. That includes access to the physical environment, transportation, information and communication, including ICT in both urban and rural areas. Accessibility, Article number 9. Now look at the population we're dealing with. First, people with disabilities in the world. WHO, World Health Organization, basically estimated that 15% of our world population has a disability, and that there's more than 1 billion of the people now with special needs. you know, many of us have special needs and with some sort of disability, one way or another. Okay, this is the population you're working with. This is the population you should be designing to, right? As well as others. One very important aspect. The other important element population we should look at are the older person, over 65 and above. You can see the rising trend in the world, global trend. We're now 2021. It says about 10% people in the world is 65 and above. Eventually, we're going to reach 16% or more. Look at that in terms of Asia. By the year 2050, our older population will triple 3 times, from 500 million to 1.3 billion. And that will include basically 25% of the world population. This is the population we should be designing to as well. We should be designing for them now. You should be designing for your grandmother, your mother, including people with disabilities, to make things accessible, which I'll show you examples of that in a minute. You're lucky, Indonesia, this is the demographic chart of Indonesia. You still have a bulk of your population is very young, probably 50 plus, 50 below the age of 50, majority of the population in that age group. But eventually that group will move up as time goes on. Eventually the younger age group becomes Asian, and of course we need to design an environment that's going to be user-friendly for everybody, including the aged and people with disabilities. Show you what are the design barriers. In order for you to design better, you got to understand what are design barriers. And these are typical design barriers. You can see crossing roads are not easy. If you're pushing a pram or going along with wheelchairs, that's not easy, okay? These are the barriers. Once again, surface, that's not going to be very easy for a wheelchair user, or pushing prams. And crossing pedestrian here, these grating has a possibility of doing that, trapping wheelchairs, and these are things along our footpath, could be a hazard, could be a danger. Once again, here, getting into that part, you have, first of all, the grating, which is a potential barrier and hazard. The bollards, possibly, it's maybe too narrow to push a wheelchair or pram through. And thirdly, a step. Someone in an electric wheelchair, we find out unmanageable. They cannot enter the park with that step. So these are the features we need to look into. Someone obviously think they design a ramp for people, yet at the bottom of a ramp, there's a step. So what are we doing? We design a good ramp, at the bottom, there's a step. So wheelchair users can't really use it to go up or down. So we're not thinking deep enough. Architects and designers are not thinking enough that they're designing for all. Once again here, can you see the different steps here? There's the steps. Without the visual contrasting to the nosing, you cannot identify the steps, or these are lines or patterns. Someone who has low vision, an older person, would have trouble going down these steps and could possibly fall and hurt themselves, injure themselves. So look at that aspect for visually impaired. Very quickly, some very quick examples now of what is universal design. Even in airplane design, the new Airbus A380 has accessible toilets inside the new airplane. And getting onto marine transportation now, must make that equally accessible for everybody to enter a boat. How are your boats, your marine transportation in Indonesia? Are they accessible for everybody? You look into it. Land transportation, trains, and metros. Most important thing is be inclusive, and of course, very important that the gap between the car and the platform must be level, and the gap very close. So people, even pulling luggages, wheelchairs, and prams can use it equally well. This is a very good example of what it should be. Very close gap and no level difference. You can see this particular train designed within the Norwegian railway system. That ramp is designed and incorporated into the carriage, so people can actually use this train, get in and out of the platform. And you can see my friend can actually go into the tram by himself, as well as other people pulling the luggage can use this train. So we're talking about universal design, universal access for everybody. You know, even including cable cars, accessible. Okay. Very quickly, getting in and out of cars, very important in Japan. In order to get into cars, they've actually made no curbs, level access from taxi stand into the taxi. It must be level without a step. And of course, even vehicles are designed to be universally accessible for all. Very quickly, design of car parks, easily accessible, getting in and out of cars on the footpath without these curbs. few more examples of inclusive environment. Very quickly, that's inclusive. Everybody can use it. Road crossing, you can see where it is easy. Crossing the roads, well-marked definitions of pedestrian crossing, bicycle lanes, and these guide paths for the visually impaired, the blind, to cross the roads. It's easy. Sydney Opera House, very well frequented. Accessibility in terms of integration of ramps, steps, and everybody can enjoy this place with the rest of the community. The street path, street crossings, very, very inclusive. Good level crossings, very good, well-defined level crossings, pedestrian crossings, very well defined. I like the idea where they have on street corners where you have posts for you to press the button to call, to pedestrian crossings. There are good signage that you can see, I can see. In addition to that, that's an even better example. That signage gives you information about the street, the location, not only in raised letters for people to touch, also it's Braille. These little dots are Braille. So this is a universal sign that everybody can use and dot in for information to get around the city. And I like this idea of a speed table, whether it shows very clearly here, that is actually a raised level on the road. So basically people can actually walk across the road, bicycles, prams, and wheelchairs across the road. The ramps are built in the road itself. So the cars have to slow up, like speed bumps, speed tables. Car has to slow up, give priority to the pedestrian, not the other way around. So this is giving the priority to people. Okay, some nice designs even in parts of the street furniture. Toilets, very inclusive, different languages. Wheelchair users and able body can actually use it just as well. Good integration of streets, steps, and ramp. Very nicely designed. Accessibility in terms of automatic doors, so that person can go out by themselves. There are no steps. This is a drainage system where you don't have any steps, but it still collects the water without flooding water going inside the buildings. Very quickly, automatic doors, shopping center, we know that. Access into shopping centers, the wider gates, the wider checkout counters, so everybody can actually use the supermarket. Automatic doors, as mentioned already. Counters can be lower section counters, everybody can use. Good examples, one counter for all, people can sit, communicate behind the counter without standing up and not being able to see if you're sitting in the wheelchair. Different color contrasting, very good features within a lift complex, a lift car, mirrors, different types of buttons, big buttons. And this particular building is designed with universal accessibility in mind. Notice the handrails, when it comes along, when it turns up, a blind person, if they use the handrails across it, every time this handrail turns up, they realize this is going to be a door opening. Okay, a door opening. So that's what it is for. It's very simple detail. Blind can use it to make it work for them. And even signage in Braille, tactile, and visually that everybody can use. So one sign fits everybody. Toilet arrangements, accessible toilet basins, even tactile warning, tactile identification for someone to use the basin who is blind in various situations. A good auditorium where you can, one aisle, you can have steps. The other step, you can lift up, becomes a ramp. So it's perfect, a beautiful design of universal accessibility, designed for everybody. One steps, one with ramp. And even the seats, and the seat, back of the seats, the numbers are seen and also have Braille. So blind people can actually feel the numbers, they can identify the seat number. And even simple things like toilets, provide changing table, provide a little chair to put your baby in case you need to use it. Ladies and gents, use a bathroom. You can actually put your baby in this chair while you go and do your washing, whatever, and then come back and pick up the baby without putting them where, on the floor or on the basin. Okay, these are all very minute details we can look into. Tourist attractions, Disneyland is ideally for inclusion. People with disabilities, baby prams, etc. Everybody can use it so well because they realize this will bring in more clients. And here, back in here, a sporting stadium way back in 2002 for the World Cup is fully designed to be inclusive of people in wheelchairs, people with disabilities. So sporting stadium, you have to be inclusive. Everybody can be a spectator or can be a sports person. And we always forget, oh, what can a blind person do? Can she do nothing? Why are we providing for these people? They can't see anyway. That's not true. That's a wrong perception. Look at this person. She's blind and she's skiing. Blind person skiing. You provide them with equipment, they can do everything together. Even person with one leg, they can still climb. Even a wheelchair, they can still climb walls. All this equipment you can see, we give them right equipment. They're out there. They can use it just like you and I. There's nothing disabling about them. You can see all this equally well included in the environment. Therefore, environment has to be inclusive. Like here, even on the Acropolis in Greece, it must be inclusive. Everybody can enjoy the certain things. Very quickly, ICT. We can include this information communication technology within our pedestrian system, implant some digital equipment into the floor, for instance, so a person who is blind can actually navigate within the building. And even ATM machines now. The Japanese have new technology ATM machines, which is fully accessible to everybody in terms of wheelchair users, and even different cards that can provide you with a color contrast, higher contrast, different sign language, different pictures, etc. A good use of logo, inclusion of logos, babies, accessibility, even people who need crutches, the ambulant disabled. Even in Japan, tins have braille on top, so you know that's a beer bottle, that's a can bottle, Coca-Cola bottle, for instance. Good example back in London, St. Paul's Cathedral. At the back of the cathedral, they make inclusion possible by including a ramp. From the front of St. Paul's all the way down to the Thames, there is a very narrow walk, which is made very inclusive with both steps and ramp. They come all the way to the Millennium Bridge, the bridge that takes you across the Thames to the other side, which is the Tate Modern Gallery. This is the Millennium Bridge. At the end of the bridge, there are ramps. So everybody can use it. There are no steps. So everybody, university people can use the prams, walk down. Everybody can use the same step to step. Not you use the steps, I use the ramp. None of that. We integrate people. But finally, safe environments. We need to get people in. We need to get people out. Evacuate in terms of emergencies. We have fires. We know that fire in the UK. Left the people dead. So we need to look at how to make buildings safe. And in Hong Kong, we have made special provisions that we have these areas of rescue assistance. So safe areas, we have allocating a number of places where they can put the wheelchair in order themselves to be located safely in order to be evacuated by the fireman or go down an evacuation lift. So these are things we have provided in our new buildings now since 2011. And this is what a refuge point looks like with intercom, etc., so they can communicate with the fireman or the management office. And even the use of these what we call evac chairs for the evacuation down the stairs when you can't carry the person down the stairs. Of course, different logos need to comply. Other thing we always forget is we forget children with disabilities. Do we have playgrounds for disabled children? This is a playground we designed, we built, now opened about 2 years ago, the first inclusive playground in Hong Kong. And it's got the good color contrast, it's got different slides for different abilities. It's got different merry-go-rounds for wheelchair users to play with their parents if they want to, different type of swings.
Excuse me, Dr. Joseph. Excuse me.
I'm
We're running out of time. Yes, thank you. Sorry. Yes.
Thank you. And the way forward, you need to look at different design guidebooks. You need to look at different UD marks for buildings. You need to look at different ISO standards, teaching the right curriculums, having good policies, having the right universal policies like in Norway, the year 2025. Disasters, finally, we have disasters. We do not forget people with disabilities. We need to include them in everything. So the motto is, we build back better and we leave no one behind. We're not looking at building these sexy buildings. We are looking at designing for these people that everybody can use the buildings quickly, efficiently, everybody being inclusive. We need to build for man. We need to be responsible for humans. We need to have safe, empathic, inclusive architecture for humanity. Inclusion, empathy. So thank you very much. I conclude on that. Sorry, I took more than my time.
That's
thank
okay.
you very much.
Thanks. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Joseph Kwan, for your inspiring sharing. I note the most important thing that we have to think about people first, not form first. I think that's your highlight. Okay, the next speaker today, we have Mr. Gunawan Tanuwijaya, PhD candidate. Mr. Gunawan will share his thought regarding experiencing disability as starting point of becoming empathetic architect. I will read through his CV. He is a full-time lecturer at Petra Christian University in architecture program, and he has taught inclusive design with service learning method involving person with disabilities since 2013. And his research is with collaboration with international partners such as UBCA, JICA, and UN Habitat. And nowadays, Mr. Gunawan Tanuwijaya, PhD candidate, is a PhD student in School of Design, Faculty of Creative Industries in Queensland University of Technology. His research topic is related to inclusive design or universal design in libraries for persons with disabilities. He's focusing on the case study research of libraries in Australia and Indonesia. Okay, Mr. Gunawan, the time is yours. You have 15 minutes to share your presentation, please.
Thank you, Dr. Roli. Can the operator help me playing the video? Okay.
Layanan disabilitas untuk di perpustakaan UK Petra sudah jadi sejak tahun 2011 yang lalu. Dan saat ini kami melayani penyandang disabilitas dengan beberapa layanan yang masih sederhana, seperti bantuan untuk mencarikan koleksi dira, kemudian software untuk penyandang tunanetra yang bisa diakses di beberapa komputer di layanan kami. Kemudian ada juga koleksi e-books yang memang kami sediakan bagi teman-teman penyandang disabilitas. Ke depan kami akan mengembangkan layanan ini, termasuk desain perabotan dan ruangan perpustakaan yang ramah terhadap disabilitas.
Was learning environment had indirect impacts on student achievement, and one of the aspects it is the accessibility. University library was an important spot for learning process. On the other hand, many users of library at Petra University found accessibility barrier when using it.
Ya, ini khusus untuk orang tua seperti saya, jadi orang lanjut usia, ada satu kelainan yang disebut dalam bahasa lainnya itu adalah orang difabel.
Understanding the importance of the access for all in library at Petra, a multidisciplinary team consisting library management, interior architecture lecturers were formed, and service learning were developed for all users, including persons with disabilities, senior persons, pregnant women, as well as children.
Ya, sebenarnya terima kasih saya diundang oleh Pak Gunawan dan tim di acara ini. Karena acara ini menurut saya sangat bermanfaat, tidak hanya untuk mahasiswa tetapi juga Bapak Ibu yang ada di perpustakaan ini.
Okay, thank you so much. Can the operator stop the video? Okay, thank you. Can the operator show the slides? Okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity for for me to present in this distinguished seminar. As published in my presentation title, it's experiencing disability as starting point of becoming empathetic architect. Okay, next. I want to acknowledge all the parties that has supported my research all this time, especially Prof. Liliani and all the PCU staff, lecturers and staffs, and also to United Boards of Christian Higher Education in Asia and other external partners like YPAB, YPAC, and other special, resource persons with disabilities. Next. Okay, so if you want to read all our research, you can go to designinklusiukpetra.wordpress.com, or you can check the chat message that I have shared, and you can see all our previous research. Next. Okay, coming back to my presentation structure, generally I will present these points, my experience as people with disability, and then why am I interested in service learning with disabilities, and some literature review. Maybe I will not discuss about this all because Dr. Kwan has explained very well, and I will not do some overlapping with him. The third is explanation of inclusive design course in PCU, and the sharing sample of improving access for all in Library Petra that you have actually see the video just now. Next. Yeah, as I'm actually considered temporary people with disability in 2019 because I experience blurry vision and I have difficulty to carry heavy stuffs because of my condition. So as you can see in the bottom left, that's my vision in 2019, especially actually only for 2 or for 1 month, but I have difficulty to see my surroundings and my find my things and work as PhD students. It's very hard. And also I have difficulty also to carry heavy stuffs because of rheumatism. So this experience actually make me really understand what are the barriers, the real barriers of people with disabilities. Next. So back again to the why am I interested in service learning with people with disabilities? First, who will benefit from service learning for people with disabilities? Of course, the answer will be people with disabilities. Many people set people with disabilities around, maybe only 4 to 10%. But actually, it's not only that. More people will benefit from our accessible design, such as older people, people carrying heavy stuff. Maybe if you go to the airports or to terminals, you can or railway or using rail, you can use the ramps for carrying heavy stuff. Pregnant women and women carrying babies. So that's why universal design or accessible design is very important. Next. Okay, so as defined as UNCRPD, people with disabilities is those who have long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairments. But in my case, I found that sick people or ill people can be also affected or can be categorized as disability, although it can be temporary. Sorry. So we have to understand that people with disability have equal rights as other so-called, we call it normal citizens. Sometimes we use normal and we consider people with disabilities are not normal. But in the reality, actually UNCRPD or United Nations Convention of Rights of Person with Disability stated that we have to understand all people, all spectrum of disability that have equal rights. Next. Okay, sorry, maybe it's a little bit slow, but I want to acknowledge that Indonesia has Act number 8 of year 2016 and also Act number 20 year 2003 on people with disabilities, rights and education. So we have to consider that as the main regulation for people with disabilities. I mean, for designing for all. So but unfortunately, Edwards and JICA study has found that many inclusive facilities are failing. So we need to consider many of these facts. Next. Yeah, okay. So many other studies also supported my this finding, and therefore school and libraries are found essential to be designed inclusively. Yeah, as you can see on the right hand side, this is Mr. Eka from he's graduated from UNESA, so he tried to use our library quite frequently. So we provided service learning maybe for 1 month in that time, so he can enjoy that. Next. So back again to the inclusive design. Inclusive design is a creative process of building and other products, services that are accessible to as many people as possible. But in Indonesia, we need to consider the time limitation. As Mr. Jokowi or President Jokowi says, the faster is the better. So everything has to be constructed faster. This is our former mayor, Mrs. Risma. So she's also believing the faster process has to be implemented. So I'm still considering this. So this is part of my PhD. So I need to build inclusive design, but faster process. Next. And then I'll come back again to my to our inclusive design course in Petra University. We create previously is 3 credit point, now is 4 credit point. So the course will be teaching design principles on user needs, focusing on user needs. We are promoting we are having a small scale project design in 2013, 2018. But now, because it's under Professor Effie, we have small scale research project related to the people with people with visual disabilities or blind people. Next. And of course, I will not read one by one, but you can see my slides in the chat room. So in the link, so you can click that and you can read all the material, and you can also email me if you need further material. But basically, we are doing simulation. The most important thing is we are doing simulation as people with disabilities on the right one, and we are discussing, or we discuss our design with the people with the real people with disabilities, so we can understand more about the needs, and hopefully we can provide more universal or inclusive design. Next. Okay, maybe I will just show you 2 regulation from ADA 2010. This regulation is actually adopted in 2006 in Indonesia, but in the latest Ministerial of Public Works regulation, some regulations are already reduced. But as you can see, normally we create ramps 1 to 10 or 10% gradient. Yeah, maybe 5 degree. 5 degree, but in the reality we need to have 1 to 20. Yeah, this is a must, but we can have 1 to 12. In US we can have 1 to 12 for existing buildings. So yeah, this is very sad. We don't really look for international standards. Next. Yeah, I just want to show the standard requirement for a single toilet. So this type of regulation also is not really, I think Dr. Kwan has mentioned about this, but I just want to show that we don't really discuss about this in our normal studio because we don't have any time, we don't have enough time for considering all this. But in our inclusive design course, we need to because we scale down this the studio. I mean, not the studio, the project, so we can understand more in detail. Next, maybe just 2 or 3 more slides. Yeah, this is our simulation. So we bought the wheelchairs and we use recycle sticks, and we close the students' eyes. Next. So it's very hard also, even in Petra, in some old buildings, we find also inaccessible doors like that. This is in YPAB school, Yayasan Pendidikan Anak Buta is a blind children education. This school is very supportive of our research since 2013. We have collaborated for 8 years, and this is the real students with the blind students. So we are doing access evaluation with the real blind students. Next. Yeah, this is our discussion in PAB and also when we are doing designing apartments and school. School and apartments. Next. So as you can see, the architectural model is very important. And then this is a participatory construction in YPAB school. We collected 20 million rupiah or $2,000. Yeah, in that time from Petra students, and we constructed this with the help of SIA, SCE Architecture, and also one of our Mr. Teguh, our lecturer. So he helped us to constructed the door and the ramps, and the Mr. Yona is helping us for the toilet also. Next. So yeah, this is only just for showing the, maybe the link is wrong, but I have provided the correct PowerPoint. It's okay, but we have seen the video just now. It's actually a project supported by United Boards. So it's 1 year participative redesigning project. It's led actually by Dr. Yusita Kusumarini from interior design, but in this paper we split the paper into 2, and one of the paper actually by Wulandari Tanuwijaya et al. In 2017 has described our project. Okay, next. Yeah, come back again to the project. It's very interesting because at the first level, we are identifying all potential users. Initially, we want to redesign only for people with disabilities, but in the reality, we just understand that actually Petra Christian University only have limited people with disabilities. So we expand our mapping, and we found that older lecturers or older staffs are using our library, and also pregnant staff or lecturers are also present in our campus. So we are changing our user requirement, and then we are doing also access evaluation with the real. We are doing simulation, and also we bring people with disabilities also to try out our access. And we conducted our sensitivity course or sensitivity improvement course. We invited Mr. Shakur, Dr. Arina, and this is Mr. Surendra. He's actually our retired lecturer. So from the 3 speakers, actually, we understand more about the condition of people with disabilities and older people for lecturers and students redesigning the library. Sorry. Next. So yeah, what is interesting? We conducted a model making because we need to explain our design for the blind respondents or the blind people. Mr. Tutus and Mrs. Desi and the other blind lecturers, blind teachers from the YPAB are invited. So we need to create this model and the 3D also for the rest of the pregnant respondents and older respondents and also children. Next. So interestingly, we can conduct it inclusive design workshop, although it's very, very tiring, it's very hard, but we can collect all the inputs and finally we can have special assistance program for older users, pregnant users, and children with special. Okay, next.
Excuse me, Pak Gunte.
Yes.
The time is sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Just one more slides. Next, can you go to the conclusion? Sorry, operator. Yeah, maybe the slides can be read after this, but I will just want to show conclusion. Sorry, 1 minute. Yeah, only this. So we need to start understanding the need of people with disabilities. We need to incorporate the access regulation. We can be more empathic with simulation as people with disability and discussion. So we need stakeholder collaboration. Thank you so much, Dr. Ruli. Sorry for taking time.
That's okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Gunawan Tanuwijaya. Thank you for your inspiring sharing about service learning methods that you apply in Petra Christian University as a method to apply the inclusive design. Sorry, I'm echoing. I am hearing my own voice. Okay, yeah, I can continue. The third speaker today, Dr. Suzanne de Laval. She will share her experience about architecture for children. How can children participate in the design process and in evaluation of school environments? I will read through her CV. Dr. Susan de Laval, she is an architect, Sweden architect, and also she is the co-director of the UIA Architecture and Children Work Program. She has also founded her own research company named Architecture NATALIS, and her research concerns planning for and with children, children's perspective, environmental impact assessment concerning children, built environment education for school children, and the impact of the school environment on education. And nowadays, Glenn is also a member of the Council for Architecture and Children within the Swedish Association of Architects. She is also a board member of the Swedish School Building Society. Please, Dr. Susan, you can start sharing your presentation. You have 15 minutes.
So this does it work that you can see the full screen now? Oh,
yes,
like this.
Perfect.
Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to have been invited to this conference, and I would like to present what architecture and children within UIA is, and what I do in my research. So to start with, I will present this Architecture and Children Work Program within the UIA. That's the International Association for Architects Associations worldwide. So I'm co-chairing this work program, and we have an own website with the address you can see here, and a lot of countries are members of this work program, and I would like Indonesia to be member, of course, also. So we're waiting for you. And as it happens, we arrange a seminar today, later today, where we present the work program. So if you would like to, you're welcome to participate. We also have a Facebook site that we put a lot of information about architecture and children, what people do all around the world. So it's a very nice contact possibility. And here you can see the list of members and guests. We have member countries, and we have people who are not yet members, but we welcome them as guests. So to begin with, we should have Indonesia here on the guest list, of course. And we used to meet twice a year somewhere in the world. And the last meeting before COVID, we were in Helsinki, and here you can see the big collection of people that came to Helsinki, and we had a very nice conference about architecture and children there. We have Arki, you can see Arki here. They are well known working with architecture and children. So it's nice. So now we meet on Zoom, and we look like this. And we have a lot of activities that we do together. And one of the biggest thing is Golden Cubes Awards, where it was founded to honor people and organizations that help children and young people to understand architecture. And we have 4 categories: schools, institutions, written media, and audiovisual media. So this every 3rd year we launch this, and this is one example that was the winning last time, 2017, and it happens to be, it was a preschool in Sweden that was the winner. And here you can see an example of activities that the preschoolers, they went out and looked in the city, and they tasted, and they were looking at the view, and they were making models, and they were doing very nice things, and they visited the planning office and discussed the small preschoolers. They discussed with the planners how the city should be done. And here is the church in the Västerås, the city where they built a model of the church. And then there were politicians out on the street, and the children, they had been studying the whole year this town, and so the small ones, they could put good questions to the planners. So this is kind of activities that we promote within this work program. And here you can see some details from the children studying their city and when they visited the planning office. Now I'm going to speak a bit about my research. I did a multidisciplinary study together with 2 pedagogues where we studied 9 schools, and we did it with a post-occupancy evaluation, and we did walkthrough tours, and that's a holistic and indicative method. And we also studied the architecture, how the architecture and education could work together. And this walkthrough evaluation is a method, you could call it a focus group method. You do an individual evaluation protocol. You can see the participants, they have a protocol that they write, and we only ask 3 questions. you stop at certain places and you see what is good about this place, what is bad about this place, and how should it be improved. So they make notations, and then we have a group discussion and a dialogue, and I document it all, of course. And usually not more than 8 stops, 5 stops for one walkthrough evaluation is very good. And I've been doing this for almost 30 years now with walkthrough evaluations, and I fantastic and important method for evaluating accessibility for all kind of disabled people. So I would really research that you presented, Gunnavan. I think you could you will like the film that I sent a link to. We studied 9 schools, and we had 3 types of school environment. We have these corridor schools with classrooms, group rooms, and a corridor. We have rooms and a sort of corridor, but open and with common areas like this where you can do lessons as well. And we have what we call common schools, where we have classrooms, group rooms, and a common area where you can do whatever. And you have a very tiny little corridor part. So we had different kind of environment, and what we were studying, what we could see were main themes that we made for the analyze was that the flexibility was very important, and the sizing of the school and of this all environment, how the children could have ownership to their environment, and acoustics, very, very important. And you speak about disabilities, but the acoustics and the sound, how so the children can hear what the teacher is saying. And so I mean, a lot of children, they make a lot of sound, and the corridors can be like hell when a lot of children are passing. So acoustics is very important, and also, of course, furniture and the visual environment for all disabilities, of course, so you won't fall on furniture in bad places. And also, what I would like to stress is accessibility and usability for children with neuropsychiatric diagnosis. That's also a very special disability. And we have a lot of school children that don't go to school because they cannot be in the environment because it's too busy, or it's a lot of bullying, or they feel they don't fit in. So I think that's also a very important issue for when you discuss disability. And this picture is a room that is for children with neuropsychiatric diagnosis, so they don't have to be in the classroom with the others. They can be for themselves a smaller group, and they have different corners, and you can see here they can sit in I don't remember the word, but like a stair, they can sit and work in different ways. So here is some examples from our walkthrough evaluations. This is a very special school where they have group rooms with glass walls. That's something we are having a very big discussion about in Sweden. Is it good or not? Because it's good for some students and it's not good for others. Here is this also very nice. Children love to sit like this. Of course, the disability, wheelchair children cannot sit like this, but all other children love it. And this neuropsychiatric diagnosis, they would climb into the corner here and sit and be a bit safe. So you have different views of it. And I have I have a film where we do this walkthrough evaluation with school children and with teachers and maintenance people and planners and architects. I do the grown-ups for themselves, and with the children we do school classes, and we have to have permissions from the parents and everything. So this and we do it both outdoors and indoors. So it works very well both ways. I don't know how many minutes I have left.
Around 3 minutes, Suzanne.
Okay.
Yes.
So I don't think we should try to show this film, but as you see, the children, they write what is good, what is bad, and how could we make it better. And with a full school class, I cannot sit down and have a dialogue. That has to be a smaller group. So I have this little tape recorder, and so they've been writing what they think, and so I go around with the tape recorder and we play the radio program, and they think that's very fun. And then I have the documentation. I also collect all the notations from the children and from the grown-ups. So that works very, very well as for both for evaluating school environment and for evaluating any other environment. And I was so, I mean, what you showed, Dr. Joseph Kwan, all those pavements and streets and ramps and everything. I've been doing a lot of that handicapped people, and we can see that it's extremely important to make all environment accessible. I think we have come quite a long way in Sweden, making everything accessible, but still we have a lot to do for the neuropsychiatric people. And I mean, when you have a problem with your eyes, it's signs are very different to read, and you're usually you can stumble on anything. So I think it's a very important issue, this architecture for all. So perhaps I stop here, or if you have any questions, or you have some questions in the end.
Yes, we have a question at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Suzanne, Dr. Suzanne de Laval. There's something that I highlight from your presentation is about your walkthrough evaluation. It is to identify the main problems of the pupils, the school children, and also the neuropsychiatric people in your project. It's very interesting. Thank you very much. And now we come to the fourth or the last presenter today. The last but not least, for sure, the speaker is Dr. Mia Tejosaputro. She will present her presentation entitled Re-Evaluating User-Centered Design in Architecture. I will read through her CV. Today, Mia Tejosaputro is a design researcher and also a part-time lecturer, a design entrepreneur also. She is an architect, and he just completed PGCHE course, a British teaching qualification for university lecturers. And interestingly, she is a founder and creative director of Accent PM, a research-based experimental design studio, both in Ningbo, China and Surabaya, Indonesia. She is a part-time lecturer at architecture of Ningbo University, China, and also a guest lecturer at the University of Nottingham, United Kingdom. Her research interest is about study of design behavior, digital design cognition, digital architecture, and digital craftsmanship. embodied creativity, and many more. Yes, the time is yours, Dr. Bia. You have 15 minutes to share your presentation. Thank you.
Right, let me just get this. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes,
Can
clearly.
you see my screen, Bruce?
Yes, perfect.
Right, let me just try to. Right. Thank you, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. I've rehearsed this, and I think I managed to get it down to 15 minutes. So we'll see. Today, I'll share about our idea of re-evaluating user-centered design in architecture. And I'm not going to go through these again. Basically, I want to show that I'm a proud Petronesian, graduated in 2007. And this is Accent. The company is basically my family company where I'm in charge into expanding the design and architecture arm. It was established in 2001. It's a construction materials company. And we, as a team, we are a research-based experimental design studio. And in the next few years, we aim to be one of the best of the tiny houses consultant and trying to use augmented reality to aid architect clients, other stakeholders communications. So probably my talk is slightly different with the rest of the talk that we are very lucky to have gone through. Before any further explanation about what we've done so far as a team, I would like to acknowledge the team. So this is more like a kind of like teamwork rather than my own work. So Jessica is based in Indonesia. Myself is based in term time usually, and I'll be usually in Indonesia during Chinese New Year, and I'll be in the UK in the summer. And Neil is in China. So the background of this particular sharing session is a mini survey on challenges in architecture practice. So we had this kind of like talk between architects friends, and I found out that there's a disjointed communication between architects and clients usually, which can result into a less effective cycles of design iteration. So it's really ineffective. Sometimes clients also have a sudden budget cut out, and it might also lead into satisfactory design solutions from the point of view of the client. So hence the idea of trying to revisit the idea of user-centered design to improve efficiency in architecture practice. User-centered design is a philosophy based on the needs and interests of the user, with an emphasis on making products usable and understandable. So there's a couple of important notions there, which is the needs and the interests of the user that we want to infer from the very beginning of the project, for instance, and to be able to have a more effective kind of like design stages later on, if that makes sense. So why human-centered design? So according to Benyon 2004, it can also lead into return on investment. I think it's quite clear if the design and construction cycles are more efficient, we are saving a lot of time. We might be spending more time at the beginning of the project, but we might be saving time in later stage because we know what the user needs and interest back on the definition about the UCD. Safety, it's safe because we've been, with the UCD approach, that means we would have been mapping all the potential users. So we've talked about, we explored about this in the last three presentations about we need to define who are the stakeholders of the building or the user of the buildings, the building management system, and so on and so forth. Ethics, it's more ethical and it's also more sustainable in a longer term. Norman 2013 mentioned also about framing the correct design problem. So the graphic on the right shows that finding the right problem, it might take similar time with finding the correct solution. So we might be spending a lot of time to finding the right problem, but then by doing so, we will be kind of like more solving a more problems, if that makes sense. So based on our literature review as a team, so we looked at different kind of like literature in UCD, and we came up with kind of an observation about these 4 different characteristics. I made the graphic as a cog because I think it works, it encapsulates the ideas very well. Usually design projects started with a pre-design observation by defining the stakeholders. It's probably not a common designing process before we actually move on to try to build user requirement and problems. So by defining these stakeholders, we will have a better understanding about who will use the buildings, and not just from the point of view from the client, which is sometimes more often, especially in a bigger kind of like scale of projects, the clients are not the end users. So with the last 3, as the cog is turning, it shows that once we've established the user requirement, we also co-ideate and co-evaluate design solutions within all the stakeholders. There's one case study that we looked at, and we were quite impressed with it. It's a school project in Ontario in 1991 to 1994, whereby the stakeholders, there was a co-design process with the stakeholders. There was an ongoing architects and community dialogue. So the building itself was built by the community, not just the parents and the students, but also the clients and other building, other stakeholders, such as the building management people. And that leads to the next one. I'm trying to exemplify our very small practice in terms of the first step, which is we wanted to try to find a localization of a tiny house concept within a context of Surabaya, Indonesia. And we were trying to build our potential users profile by doing a quick survey. Within 24 hours, we received 140 respondents. Hence, we were able to have to build a potential user profile and what kind of spatial needs the potential users will need. And this also helped us to kind of like to move forward by looking at the design, what kind of design direction that we'll be looking at. So it wasn't an input for the next stage in terms of within a small, with the tiny houses, that means space is limited, and we were able to come up with the idea of split day spatial arrangement. So within the day, the spaces can be arranged differently with nighttime, for instance. And after we finish with the investigative processes, then we were able to embark on a generative processes by looking at different kind of concepts in terms of adaptive spaces, multifunctional furniture, and kind of like a combination between the two. We were also able to come up from the data of the questionnaire. We were able to find out design parameters, tweakable design parameters, more importantly, in tiny houses. So the idea is with the tiny houses, it's also fully customizable from one house to another house, according to user preferences. So this is an example of design parameters. We've got 10 design parameters that is usually a choice between a high, medium, low. And this is, the next slide will be an example about all the parameters we put in high. So, so spaces are adaptable in daytime and in nighttime, and also with regard to the current pandemic. So the work from home arrangement is also quite important. And the second of all, I'm trying to exemplify the three concurrent processes in our recent project. The scope is interior design in the same idea of the tiny house concept, and the big aim is to maximize the space in a very small plot. So what we did in the first stage is we built user profile by sending a first questionnaire with 25 open-ended questions, and we were able to build the user profile, basic data. We were able to try to understand users' lifestyle and wish list, and day-to-day hourly schedule, special needs future plan. I think this is quite important. And most interestingly, we actually received a set of interior mood boards gathered by the clients. Usually these kind of mood boards come from the architect, but I think it's more effective if the client is also on board and looking at what sort of like interior design scheme that they are looking for. And so the second stage, we were looking at the design parameters where the client can choose based on their preferences. For instance, it seems that the hobbies and passion is related to literature, where clients like to read. So a small corner of a library is something that is suggestive by the clients. And also, for instance, openness of plan in medium. So it's in a way that it's open in open plan in public places, but not in private places. For instance, work from home scenario where the clients wanted to have, if possible, 2 separate rooms for the work from home scenario. Medium space adaptability and flexibility and multifunctional furniture, which means they only want to have the space adaptable, space that they don't really use in day-to-day basis. For its dining room, they don't want it to be something that they have to lift up on and off all the time, for instance. But if they're okay in any other places, such as the guest bedroom and stuff like that. So this is just another example on how user data affects our design decisions by an example of converting one of the utility room into a small office. So at first we look at the original layout of the house, and then we did the 2 sets of questionnaires, and we give options in terms of how to optimize limited spaces. And one particular example that I want to mention in this talk is the suggestion on the change of function into the domestic helpers room based on the UCD gathered data, which we turn it into a small office and a small library. So the next stage will be, we were looking at small home office alternatives instead of having the utility room, and clients approved our idea. And the team went to the site visit and discussed with the developer whether it's still possible to change the wall, because we needed the wall to be a full glass door rather than a regular wall and door. And the developer was okay to put the construction on hold and to cater our suggestion. So from that stage, we were able to do a second and third round of the design alternative based on the approved site condition. And we also did simulation whether with this change of function, would it affect especially the environmental strategy, whether actually the space that we wanted to convert, whether it actually works as a office or not. So few observed notions in UCD that we have been exploring is that pre-design stage is very pertinent. Users and those who are involved in the process, including the contractor, supplier, clients, and other stakeholders. And the project timeline needs to be able to cater the concept. We also probably need to start thinking about defining the stakeholders and the potential of co-creation within this UCD approach. The ownership of design, usually architect is the one who on the design, but with the co-creation with clients, to actually shift the idea that we are co-creating the design together. So instead of being a directive architect or directive designer, we can also be rather a more facilitative architect. So we also mentioned about in previous, we had gone through this in depth in terms of users with special needs have to also be catered. And we need to be able to communicate that from the beginning of the project. So these are some observed challenges that we found during our minimum practice and from the literature. So one of the biggest challenges, every user has their own needs and preferences. So we need to be able to come up with a more like systematic approach, perhaps, especially in a larger scale projects where scalability of our approach is might be problematic. So we know that dealing with a small house and with a tiny house and retail building is something that is completely different. It's also time consuming. I'm sure we all agree on that, especially at the beginning of the project. We need to be able to also educate clients to speak up about their needs from the beginning. And I think having it written as journal is also something that is very useful. So there's also an ethical issue on trying to get data, personal data from clients. And but with these challenges also comes with potentials, which potentially we can increase effectiveness of communication between stakeholders. We also talk about the sense of design ownership with clients, when we can start doing a multidisciplinary practices and future-proofing design through communicated future plans, which I think is very important. And there's no one-size-fits-all UCD approach. And I think each project needs to be tailored based on the scale, nature of projects, and agreed level of engagement expected from the stakeholders. I think through communicating the UCD approach and its implications before contract is signed, especially to all the stakeholders, and avoid withdrawing any design decisions to client or stakeholders. I've heard from practitioners that they usually hold information, not wanting to show part of the design because they were so afraid that the clients will comment on it and try to change it all over again. But I think if we have a live workflow, such as a live documented process, potentially online, accessible by all stakeholders, and I think it will be a helpful test in our architectural practice. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much. Exactly 15 minutes. Thank you, Dr. Mia. Thanks. Now we have how many minutes we have a Q&A session, MC? How many minutes more?
We have 30 minutes for Q&A session.
Okay, we have 30 minutes. Thank you. I think we can start from the chat box. Oh, there are one questions. Oh, I have one. Actually, I have question for all the speakers, the great speakers today. Related to the application of the inclusive design. Sorry. It is needed a collaborative work from top and bottom. As Dr. Kwan shared in Hong Kong, the role of the Hong Kong government locally and nationally plays a significant part in inclusive design approach for public or for private spaces through regulations. If we talk about regulation, it means there's a reward and also punishment. Probably, that's my understanding. And also from the bottom perspective, all users, such as what Mr. Gunawan and also Dr. De Laval shared, that the user's approach by interviewing and asking the user is an effective way to identify the real problems. And also Dr. Mia mentioned it is as a user-centered approach. And my question is, what do you think for the four speakers about the idea of collaborative of top and bottom? Do they need to contribute equally, or probably there is any specific situation that probably doesn't need regulation from the authority, just need from the really users engagement for the design, just need the regulation from the authority. Yeah, that's my question. Who wants to start to answer? Probably Dr. Joseph Kwan.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you're right. There's
Kwan?
different approaches, top down or bottom up. The combination of that, we mentioned it today about participation, communication, participation, and consultation. Nowadays, most of our big projects, if it's government projects or significant projects, we must engage in what we call as public consultation or stakeholder engagement exercises. And that's where, and I think that's very important, I think Susanna mentioned that she interviewed children, what their school environment is like. The same with our, whatever we're building, we should really speak and interview and have these stakeholder engagement exercises with the various stakeholders to get their approval. In fact, some of them we have committees, government committees, where you have to get the design approved by this accessibility committee, if you like, before something can be built. Thank you. That's certainly, it's a combination of that. Thank you.
So it should be contribute equally, do you mean, or depend on the project?
It depends. Yeah, it depends on the type of projects. Equally, it's hard to say whether it's 50%. Sometimes some are quite willing to do that. Is it like you said, penalty or whatever? The carrot and the stick. The carrot, you provide some incentives, government incentives for them to do certain things. You provide awards. It's a carrot. So if your building is great, just like they've done in Singapore, the UD Mark Award, we have the same in Hong Kong. We call it the Inclusive Built Environment Award. If that building complies with those requirements, you're awarded this a plaque and recognition up and beyond. That's user-friendly for people. That's a carrot. The stick is basically just come out with regulations. If you don't do it, we're going to penalize you. And that's two different ways of doing things, top down or bottom up. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Joseph Kwan. And the next, probably Dr. Suzanne will answer.
Yes, so now you can hear me. If I speak about school planning, usually the headmaster is a participant of the planning process for a new school, and sometimes the colleague of teachers are also invited to work bottom up and decide what pedagogy and so on that they will. And they are experts on pedagogy and that kind of methods. And the architect is the expert of the physical environment. And the best is if they can have a common dialogue, of course. But we have one, as I would say, usual problem with school planning, and that is that the headmaster is in the planning process, and then many of the headmasters, the planning process takes 2 or 3 years, and it's a big job and very tiresome. And then when the school is built, they leave for another job, and they leave the teachers with a new leader, and the new leader perhaps doesn't have the same ideas of how the pedagogic leadership. It could be a problem, and therefore I'm working with the school planning society, and we are trying to make recommendations that are a bit more that would work anywhere, because we have to analyze what is important. And we now have found this with neuropsychiatric or those who are the most vulnerable. We can make a very good school environment for everyone, and we have different pedagogic ideas can make very different environment for those with neuropsychiatric diagnosis. So we are trying to find out what kind of recommendations we could give, but having a dialogue is very important, and having a dialogue where the teachers are learning a bit more about the physical environment. I think that it's that's why I work with architecture and children, because we see that you have to learn about the physical environment, about architecture when you are in school, and you have to, I mean, everyone needs to know about and have the language to speak about the physical environment, so they can participate in democratic processes, so they know what they are asking for. Because I mean, we have a discussion now in Sweden about what is beautiful about architecture for all, because I mean, you have I mean, design is not making something beautiful. Design is making something useful. And so I think for people all over to understand what design and architecture is and what it can do for us in a very good dialogue, and it could be bottom up or it could be top down. I think if you learn about how the official process works, then you have the tools to participate both in top down and bottom up. So learning, knowing more, and having people understand, I think that's the key to democratic and inclusive processes.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne.
Suzanne, can I have, sorry, excuse me. Suzanne,
yeah.
You mentioned that you only interviewed this head teacher, the headmaster, and they leave. What about the teachers? I mean, the headmaster, he may have a principle of what the school is going to be like, but physically working every day are the teachers. And do you not also interview them to see what they think is a nice environment for their children? The headmaster is an administrator. He's not a teacher as such.
Yeah.
You're right, it's pedagogic. He can
I mean,
you're right, it's pedagogic. He can direct that direction.
Every project is an individual, and in many projects, the teachers, all the teachers are inclusive in the dialogue, and in some projects it's only the headmaster, or the headmaster is discussing with the architecture team, and then the headmaster has sessions with the teachers, of course, the colleagues. So it's different, and sometimes more teachers are involved in but usually the headmaster is the one who meets the architect and the team, and then go back to his or her colleagues. I think that's the usual way.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne and Dr. Kwon. And how about Pak Gunte and Dr. Mia? Who wants to start?
Maybe I just want to add some. I believe, as mentioned, Dr. Kwon and Dr. Mia, Dr. Suzanne, sorry, Dr. Suzanne, we need top-down and bottom-up mix. Applied together. But in Surabaya case, for example, when I found in the library of Surabaya, the government controlled the design very strongly. So I don't think it's really bottom up in Surabaya library. But in Brisbane Library, it's not really final yet, but I found some accessible consultant involved. The accessible consultant is, the access consultant is also a people with disability. So they give inputs to the Brisbane designers or architects, so the library is more accessible. That's why I didn't say that the Surabaya library is not accessible. It's partially accessible, but the problem with the top down, I don't want to I don't want to say bad words about our mayor, but our mayor is very top down. So that's why maybe in Surabaya library, the building is not really fully accessible because they need to cater the faster construction speed. So yeah, that's the bad and the good things about top down and real example.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Gunted. How about Dr. Mia?
I think I'm just gonna add. I think everybody has posited important kind of like notions. I just want to add that this is the idea of. I think it starts from our architecture education. I think what Kunte started also actually fits really well, as long as we meet somewhere in the middle. Also, we understand probably depending on the scale of the project and et cetera. But I just want to mention that, yeah, I think it starts with our education. If we can educate architects with these, I think we can create a slightly better world. And I think what Petra has been doing is fantastic job, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mia. It's amazing. Thank you. We have here several questions in the chat box. There's one question for Mr. Tanuwijaya, Pak Gunte. That's from Jian Hanardi Rayawang. Or probably Pak Jian wants to say directly with...
Hi, hello.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
please. Yeah.
So just like what Mr. Gunte has shared, especially in Indonesian context, like all this inclusivity being rolled out by the developers and all the stakeholders. I just want to know is what are the next follow-up steps or like the strategies for all the society to implement the inclusivity and universal design to the buildings? The strategies are like the other countries like Singapore and maybe Hong Kong, as what Mr. Kwan shared, like the government will give some incentives. There will be award to the stakeholders. Is there what are we pursuing to implement this? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jian. Pak Gunte, please.
Okay, just a short question, just short answer. Actually, we tried the Singapore model, I think in 2017, and we have a mandatory access regulation. But since 3 years ago, we couldn't do it. So I think it's good to have awareness, to build awareness. Like Dr. Mia said, we need to educate architects, designers, and also the government officials about universal and inclusive design. And then later we can do like Singapore or Hong Kong style, maybe. I'm actually also interested with Hong Kong case because Hong Kong in 1965 or 1970 is almost the same like Indonesia. But now Hong Kong and Singapore is far beyond compliance, universal design compliance. I think that can be the next answer. I mean, the next step. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Gunte. I think that's a big homework for us as educators and also for architects. Yeah. And also there's questions from Mrs. Luciana Cristanto, or probably Miss Luciana wants to say directly to the speakers, to the all speakers. You can turn on your mic. Miss Lucy? Okay, I will read through the questions. The question is for all speakers, the 4 speakers. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing all impressive presentation that full of caring for the users. The question is, sometimes we need to fight for a more inclusive design with the building owner or client probably. Their concept is usually as economics as possible. So the inclusive design for the small quantity of disabled people is sometimes costly for them. How we should bargain regarding this? It's very interesting question. Who wants to start to answer? Probably Dr. Joseph Kwan.
Yeah, very good question. Everybody looks at the bottom line, which is the economics. And I think there are different arguments against that. Basically, if we're talking about universal design, inclusive design, we're talking about more people will benefit. If you look under all those literature about what is universal design and design for all, basically we're talking about more people than just a few, 1 or 2% of people who are maybe in wheelchair or the blind person. So that is where the economic factor comes in. We are providing an accessible environment that people can actually use. And for instance, they can come to your shopping center, they could buy more things if they're allowed to use your environment versus something that is not accessible. So there's an economic factor in terms of daily lives people can actually use and come to the place. Secondly, also interesting, the UN has been promoting this for a long time, is inclusive tourism. Right, I think I've actually have a few colleagues working and living in Indonesia who's actually looking at that as a very viable business strategy. That if you make your cities, your tourist sites more accessible, your hotels accessible, the temples, Borobudur accessible, more tourists will come. And that's why, based on the statistics of people with disabilities as well, providing more accessibility, they will come and visit your place, they will spend money in your city, in your town. So there is that economic equation. I've actually done studies where by improving the accessibility, the country is probably gaining another 10% an income and revenue from people with disabilities. So I think you can come to that if people are looking at government, developers, always look at the bottom line. The second thing I would like to mention is building in accessibility or inclusion from the start, from day one, costs very little versus something which you retrofit later. That's very simple. I mean, there's studies been done. If you do it from the beginning, it's probably 0.5% more than if you didn't do it and you come back and do retrofitting, which is going to cost you 20, 30% more to do the same thing. So there are many, many ways of looking at it. If you look at economics, I think these are different ways of looking at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph. Probably Dr. Suzanne, please.
Okay, I really agree with all what you said, Dr. Joseph. I mean, it's exactly what I also would like to say. And I mean, when I speak about this school children, we have those children who stay at home and don't want to go to school. I mean, it's a cost for the whole society, having a lot of children that cannot participate in the schoolwork. And so I think it's if we follow the law in Sweden, everyone should go to school when they are children. So, and we also have a law about accessibility. So we are not allowed to build new houses which are not accessible for wheelchairs and so on. Still, there is a lot to do, of course, to make it better. And in renovation projects, it's very important to do good new parts of the building and to make ramps and everything and make it function together with the house that you already have. So, and of course, when you build from the beginning, you should do all kinds of accessibility and usability for all, of course. And I think I'm part of a research team for school buildings, and I think we have a lot to learn about what works and what does not work in the school buildings. I think the environment is not perfect in school buildings, and since pedagogic ideas change all the time, you have to adopt and make buildings that works with new ideas.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Suzanne. Dr. Mia, please.
Yes, it's actually, it's reminded me slightly during my experience as a junior architect back in Singapore. And when the first regulation rolled out in Singapore, every single apartment suddenly has to cater at least 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, BFA, barrier-free accessibility. And we were in the middle of doing the design development. So every single millimeter of distance suddenly count. And it's really hard to cater when it was not being incorporated from the very beginning of the project. Yes, we have the building print which was agreed by the government, but then we still have to adjust in a way that every single apartment can cater the BFA regulation. And it was very costly, but I think looking back, when I had to go through 33 apartments, kind of like floor plans, it was pain. But I think, thinking back, I think if we didn't do it that time, it will be a lot more, it'll cost a lot more to the developer, as what Dr. Joseph Kwan also mentioned. So I think, again, it's a matter of educating or presenting this as a case study to the client, or maybe other stakeholders and other stakeholders, I suppose, from the very beginning is something that we probably need to consider.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mia. Dr. Pak Gunte, please, Mr. Gunte.
Thank you so much. This is actually Mrs. Kristanto is actually my team. So her question is actually the real finding from our process. For example, in Petra, we have 1980s library and maybe 1960s classes in A, B, C block. So it's totally very hard to provide new elevator or new vertical access in that building. So economic reason is the problem because it's not really viable to provide that in old buildings. But in our new buildings like P block, T block, and W blocks, sorry, maybe Radius Praviro block. So the elevator is already provided, and we think it's more accessible. So yeah, especially the Q block. I think Mr. Jimmy has provided all that. Hello? Okay. So I believe our solution can be incorporated as early as possible, like Dr. Mia or Dr. Kwan's mentioned. So we have to incorporate it as early as possible. That's the cost reduction process. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Gunte. I think that's biggest challenge for us, in developing countries. We have 2 questions here left, and we have 2 minutes, I think. Yeah, the questions is from Giovelino Martins. Probably you can raise your question directly. Pak Giovelino, please. Okay, I will read through his questions. I want to ask to all speakers about design that include a kid and having disability, and specifically about the kid that having autism. Is there any specific design that combine inclusive and designed for children for this kind of kid. Because I think the problems will be different psychologically because they're still in development state, and the example for inclusive design is mostly for disability by physically, not mentally. So is it possible there is some design that can provide those? That's the question from Giovelino. Who wants to start? Probably Dr. Suzanne. You works with children mostly, please.
Yes, that's a neuropsychiatric diagnosis, as I have mentioned several times in my lecture. I mean, this ADH, this is a very important question, and we in Sweden we are discussing a lot how can we make a good environment for those children. And everyone is an individual, and what is very important is to ask the child and the individual what would work for you, because one is very easily disturbed, another cannot concentrate because of different things, and you have to ask them. I mean, it could be a visual a pattern. One teacher told me she had a dress with a very special pattern, and her pupil said, "Oh, why do you wear this? I cannot look at you," because the pattern was sort of disturbing him all the time. So you really have to have a general environment that you can change, that you can put in furniture. I've been seeing in my research chairs with screens like this, so that take away a lot of impact from the environment, and still you can sit in this chair and you have these screens and you can participate and be with the others, and still you are a bit isolated. And as I told you, with some children, they climb into the corner and they sit there and then they feel safe. So you can find in a dialogue with the individuals, you can find good ways, and so they can participate together with children with no diagnosis. But it's a work for the pedagogues, and it's also important to make this environment so general, so you can make those different adjustments.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Suzanne. Dr. Joseph Kwan, please.
Yes, thank you. It's a very interesting and important question. Yes, we originally, you look at the history of accessibility, we obviously started on with the physical environment first, which is wheelchair accessibility, getting people in through doors, overcome steps, and the washrooms, the toilets big enough, the bathroom, etc. And that has always led the charge, if you like, for designing for people with disabilities. And now we come to the stage where visually impaired is equally important, and the deaf people are equally important. And of course, we're now to the stage of designing for people with intellectual or cognitive disability. And it's very right that we need to look at that. There are some references, not so much at the moment. What we need to look at the differences, probably people with intellectual or psychological impairment probably feel the environment differently, not just in the space and ergonomics and anthropometrics, but probably more sensually. They probably, like Susanna mentioned, the color of the dress, the pattern, it's already different, excites them or disturbing to them. So the environment is very important. That needs to cater for the different needs. Whether the noise. I think already someone mentioned, I think Susanna mentioned about the room, the acoustics cannot be too loud. Some child, even just normal me speaking like this, it's very disturbing for the child if they feel it, so badly that they got to close their ears. And the visual stimulation, too much of it, too little of it, the lighting, too much lighting, too little lighting, the colors too bright, the patterns, all these things come into effect. I think this is a very interesting area for study, and maybe the university, Petra, can look into that and coming up with some good ideas and what sort of parameters, requirements is suitable for someone with autism or someone with intellectual or cognitive disability. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kwan. Dr. Mia, you can start.
I have nothing to add really, because I don't have any experience apart from we have our niece and nephew back in the UK. Both of them are autistic, and I only heard the struggle about finding the correct school for them, because they can't. She might look okay from the appearances, but then the idea of she can't really stay in certain school environment for too long, for instance. So as a designer, I've never had an experience of designing for them, but then just as a family background, we have come, I think it's really important to look at this, and and the importance also, I think in Indonesia, the difference with in the UK is kids get diagnosed about disability, mental disability very early on. So there's always system in place, and there are system of schools in place for them to have a try, but it's maybe something that in the future Indonesia can have the same. Yeah, that's it for me.
Sure, thank you, Dr. Mia. Pak Gunte, please.
Maybe just short. We have tried to do arts activities with the autistic or mental disability, but the problem is actually to limit the movement and also to give less stimulation. So the problem is not really towards the design, simple design, but it was towards limitation or safety of the movement. I copy paste the Center of Universal Design Australia. They have a very good resource on autistic and other research. Maybe Gio can access that and maybe can search further. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Gunte. I think we're running out of time. But the organizer gave extra 5 minutes for us. We still have 2 questions in the chat box. The question is from Stephanie Natalia Sabatini. Do you mind to open your mic and ask it directly to the speakers? Stephanie, are you there? No, okay, I will read through. Okay. She's asking about during the pandemic situation, there is some limitation on the method to engage with the clients, especially people with disabilities, children, and the elderly. Consider that they might be having more vulnerable condition. Is there any experience regarding how to conduct service learning method or design service meeting with this segment of users during pandemics? What's the limitation and adjustment needed to be conducted? That's from Stephanie. Probably we can start from Pak Gunte about service learning.
I'm lucky that I'm doing service learning before 2018. So I have no experience with service learning during pandemic. I think Professor Effie and Bu Luciana and Mrs. Luciana has more experience with this. But generally speaking, because I'm doing also interview with people with disability, we have to convert from physical meeting to Zoom. I think it's a must. Secondly, we need to improve or have to give more telecommunication funding. Yeah, that might be more expensive for them because they don't have, sometimes they don't have handphone or laptop or even the voucher for the communication. The last one, maybe if I can add, it's even harder for the blind. For the rest, it's not really that hard. But for the blind, because we need to wrap or we need to fill the model, architectural model, so it will be very, very difficult. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Gunte. Dr. Suzanne, probably you can share your experience.
Yes, I mean, since most school children all around the world has been put home, and so they have education in Zoom or other like this conference. I think for the children, the children who don't want to go to school, they are suddenly expert on this because they some of them have already this distant education. So in that way, the teachers are learning more how to handle this distant education in computers, and I think that is in one way a good development. Still about not having the possibility to meet and to go to school and to do things. It's I think it's just terrible for all of us. And I mean, for elderly, I mean, my mother and my mother-in-law, they are both 90 years old, and they cannot use the computer, and they become very isolated. So it's terrible. I cannot see so many solutions for those who cannot use Zoom and other possibilities like that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Suzanne. Dr. Mia, you want to share?
I think I'm gonna skip on this one. I haven't got any. I haven't got much to say about this, so yeah, I'm gonna skip this one.
Okay, thanks. Dr. Joseph Kwan, please.
Just say about just the learning, I guess just try to, we are accustomed to wearing masks now, face covering to school. That's one thing. Social distancing is another thing. We also have classes, split them in half if you like, daytime, A team, B team, alternate days and morning, afternoon. There are many, many different ways of physical, of doing a separation. And like I said, if the students have to come to school, they should wear a face mask and give them the right sanitizing, hand wash, etc. And hopefully that can get them back in a safer school environment, using all different techniques. And I agree, staying at home and online learning is sometimes can be good for some. Some people just cannot do it, especially as you mentioned, the autistics, cognitive children. They don't understand why they're not allowed to walk around, go outside. And these are the things we need to understand fully, and in order to approach this pandemic sensibly. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Joseph Kwan. We're really running out of time. We have no more questions in the chat box. Thank you very much for the two speakers, Dr. Joseph Kwan, Dr. Suzanne de Laval, Dr. Mia, and also Pak Gunte. Thank you for your very intriguing presentation. Hope that we can have a more network together with students or probably for research on else. And to conclude this discussion this afternoon, probably I will highlight some points here. If we talk about architecture for all, it means that the architecture or the product from the architect must be usable and understandable for the users, but not also the users, but also the client. We have to have a good communication, good collaboration with the client. Also, if we're talking about economics, it should give a benefit in economics, both short term and long terms. That's the first. And the second is about collaboration. That's the key if we talk about inclusive or about universal design. Collaboration is, as mentioned before, that could be start from education. Educators or architect could create a networking with the stakeholder. And also the last thing is about probably is a shift of definition of design. The design is making something useful, not just beautiful. That's the thing that we have to remember always for students and also for educators and researchers. Yeah, thank you very much for the 4 speakers. We close the discussion and I will give back the room to the MC. Please, Sherin and Cheryl. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ruli, and all the participants and all the amazing speakers for the inspiring and educative seminar.